What I enjoy most about the content I create here on this channel is that a lot of you guys who are actually curious about the creation process and what it's like to be an indie creator, and more specifically an indie comic book creator here on this channel. And I love able to share my experiences and what I've been going through on this journey as a comic book creator myself. But most importantly, a lot of you guys have sent me a lot of emails asking me, hey Brian, how did you come up with the Venus Orion Comics universe? What was the story? What was the inspiration? How did you come up with the story of Variant Colors Vampire Killers, which is my first comic book IP, where I released the first chapter just last year, and chapter 2 will be on its way with the physical campaign next year, and we'll get into more of that later. But what inspired Variant Colors Vampire Killers? What inspired Venus Orion Comics in general? And we're going to get into that in this video, because a lot of you guys who want to be creators are having that struggle. And when it comes to trying to come up with an idea, come up with a structure, come up with a story, and where to pull it from. And if you're watching this video and you're a writer or you're trying to become a creator, you must understand, don't try to come up with this idea of where you want your first idea to be this epic story, this epic journey like Lord of the Rings or something like Harry Potter. You have to understand, when a lot of these stories were made, a lot of writers wasn't think that, hey, this is going to be, or a lot of creators wasn't thinking that this is going to be the biggest thing ever. No, they had an idea and they put it down on paper, and it just happened to blow up and become successful. And now, if you're born in modern time, you only see the success and how epic it is, but it took time for it to grow. And that's the same thing when it comes to creating your first IP. They're not supposed to be just epics out the gate. No, they mature over time. So what inspired me? And it's quite simple. You may not even believe me if I was to tell you about it. My inspiration for Variant Colors Vampire Killers and Venus Orion Comics came from one city. And that city was Philadelphia, the city where I was born and raised my entire life. It was Philadelphia that gave the birth to Variant Colors Vampire Killers and Venus Orion Comics. So, what I said before, and what I want you to ingrain it into your brain, is that if you're trying to come up with an idea or you're trying to come up with a story, always pull. If anything else fails, always pull from your personal experience. And in this case, Philadelphia was responsible for the creation of Neo-Delphia. And because of Philadelphia, and from the time I was born, going through elementary school, all the way to high school, being a young adult, it shaped who I am as an individual based on the relationships, the friendships, even some of the violent encounters that I experienced over time. Also dealing with the law itself and working as a security guard in Philadelphia as well. All those experiences has shaped who I am. And from there, I needed a location for Variant Colors Vampire Killers to take place. And because of my experience and the things that shaped me as the person that I am today, allowed me to be able to create the story that I created with my first IP. Now, when it comes to Neo-Delphia, Neo-Delphia came from the idea of the fact is that Philadelphia has two different, I guess you say, faces. See, on the surface, if you're an outsider when it comes to Philadelphia, if you look at how the media portrays Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, you see the beautiful cities, the lights, and everything about what Philadelphia is and how it's portrayed to the media. But if you're a citizen and you're a person who's grown up and live in Philadelphia, you notice that's not really the case. Just like any other city, there's always your good and there's always your bad. And I've grown up in a neighborhood, full of violence, full of corruption, which there's a lot of corruption in Philadelphia itself, not only when it comes to the street life, but when it also comes to the political structure here in Philadelphia as well. And this is not a jab at Philadelphia. Don't get it twisted, because I love my city. I love everything about Philadelphia. I love walking around Philadelphia. That's why I came up with the ideas that I came up with. just walking around and seeing the beautiful city, especially down in Center City, and speaking with different people gave me that creative inspiration as a writer. So don't get it wrong. I love Philadelphia. But as I said before, because of how the media portrays Philadelphia from a tourist perspective and living a life as a citizen here in Philadelphia, you are able to see up close of that double face that Philadelphia have. And Neodelphia represents that in Variant Keller's Vampire Killers and Venus Orion Comics universe in general. Because in Neodelphia, it looks like a utopian city, like highly advanced. People come here to live that American dream. And from the outskirts, it looks like this is the place I want to be. But once you actually live in Neodelphia, the real face, or the other face that people don't see because of the media itself, which we'll get into, the government that structures a lot of these neo cities or just the guardian states in general, you start to see a totally different picture. And the fact is that Neodelphia is more like a dystopian society where you're constantly under constant surveillance by the guardian protocol system, which I came up with this idea during a time in our neighborhoods where our neighborhoods started becoming not only more violent, but more controlled, meaning that where I live, law enforcement and many other places or the government itself started placing security cameras on every corner. So even if you're not doing crime, you're constantly being watched. You're constantly being surveilled. So your life is no longer personal anymore because they can just pull up a camera and see everything, no matter where you're at. So that's what made me come up with the Guardian Protocol system, because in my universe, in Neodelphia and many other Guardian State controlled places and locations, everybody has to wear a Guardian watch or a Guardian band or an app where they're constantly being surveilled, and they all have a Guardian score. And depending on high or low determines your access to the city and the privileges that you have. Now, in Neodelphia, everything are broken into sectors, especially when it comes to the living quarters. You have sectors A, B, C, and D. It's a class system. Everybody is placed in these locations based on their class. And that's how I wanted to do it here in Neodelphia as well. And depending on how committed or depending on how trustworthy you are when it comes to the system itself and how obedient you are, the more privileges that you earn and how you're able to climb and elevate through the system itself. Now, if your score is low, the Guardian State government comes in and rehabilitates you, and I won't go into any deeper details than that because you have to find out in Variant Keller's Vampire Killers and future series, other comic book series that I would have that will break this system down. But that's the overall gist of this. So the lower you go into the Guardian score itself, it creates I would say a class system, because people who have the privileges are treated much better for having a much higher score, for being obedient to the system. And if you go to the places where the scores are much lower, there's more violence, more law enforcement, and many other things that goes on, and more corruption from not only the streets itself, but also from the government itself. So I really wanted to portray that here in Variant Keller's Vampire Killers and just in my universe in general. But why is it called Neodelphia? And the fun part about it is the original Philadelphia, which I live today, I wouldn't say no longer exists, but it pretty much became I guess you would say, a desolate wasteland. And Neodelphia is pretty much a city that's built over the ruins of Philadelphia due to a civil war that took place 100 years ago in Philadelphia, which we'll get into those details in Variant Keller's Vampire Killers Chapter 2, which release next year. But that's what really established and gave me the ideas that I have, and why I started creating Neodelphia. And when I started creating this massive city, it started shaping and creating other characters. And the reason why it's called Neodelphia, because a mega corporation known as Neo Industries had came in and joined up with the Guardian state government and started rebuilding Philadelphia. They wanted to create this utopian city. And there were other ruined cities, which was Washington, D.C., New York City, and San Francisco, who are also experiencing or are also undergoing the Neo City projects as well. But Philadelphia was one of those cities that was part of this Neo City initiative. But in order for this corporation to be able to build this, they also had to work with the government. They had to agree to certain rules, certain laws, and they also had to bake the Guardian Protocol system itself into the city. So it's built into the city. Decided and negotiated how it's going to be run. They were able to do that. And because of the citizens of Philadelphia who were part of that participated in the Guardian Civil War against the Guardian faction and the Freedom faction had lost that city. The Guardian faction won. So because of economic reasons and because of the fact is that the government just didn't have the resources to relocate the Freedom faction who lost those families, instead they built over top of the people of Philadelphia, of the old ruins of Philadelphia. So old Philadelphia still exists. It's just underneath the city of Neodelphia. So Neodelphia is the upper city and old Philadelphia is the lower city. And in some cases, people will call it the underbelly, which has its own economic system, much more dangerous. It's poorer in everything. And the upper city and lower city is divided by tunnels that most people will call the ghost tunnels, or they would call it the ghost paths. So those tunnels separate both cities from one another. And there's politics between the two cities, which you will discover in Varian Keller's Vampire Killers and also other comic book series in the near future. And what also makes the city much unique is how do vampires navigate through this city? And how do people not know of the existence of vampires? And what hold does vampires have over Neodelphia? And there is an all-out war that's going on between three factions within Neodelphia itself, known as the Shadow War, because it's out in the open, but people are eyes wide shut. They refuse to believe that it exists, or they don't know it exists at all. And the three factions that are currently fighting is the Ostrom Order, which is the Vampire Society. And then Third Echelon. Third Echelon is a self-governed entity of its own. Think of S.H.I.E.L.D. from Marvel. They kind of like that. Track, fight, and also remove anomalies found in the world. And then, of course, you also have the Church of Elohim that also play a big part in this Shadow War. So these three factions are going to war with one another. And the people of Neodelphia and even all parts of the world are all caught up in this war. And Varian Keller's Vampire Killers, the main characters, Varian and the Draven brothers and the Retributes themselves, they are the players that are in the middle of this and trying to unravel and uncover who is the puppet masters that's orchestrating and that's pushing this Shadow War itself. And man, my God, like if you guys can see what I see in the things that I have planned and laid out and structured, there is so much to Varian Keller's Vampire Killers that you won't be able to believe the direction that this story is going to take you as a reader. Is going to be wild once you uncover the truth behind the Shadow War and what's orchestrating it, who are the big players, who are the heroes, who are the villains, who are the people that's in between. But all this came from Neodelphia. And because of Neo Industries, I also came up with Neo Suit Johnny, the grandson of Neo Industries itself, corporate empire that Neo Industries has created in over the course of 200 years. So, oh my God, it's just wonderful. And because of corruption from the law itself in Neodelphia, created characters such as Jake Pierce. And he's a person that's fighting against that corruption after he lost his family. A government structure had pretty much covered it up. You guys be able to witness and explore the characters such as Jake Pierce himself. So all this came from Philadelphia. Philadelphia gave me these ideas and how I want to implement the storytelling and the structures and the characters that I pretty much built around Philadelphia. And after me explaining this, I want you guys who are looking to be creators yourselves, dig deep inside yourself and see what it is that motivated you and what shapes you as an individual, because your own personal experiences can allow you to create some amazing stories from your perspective. And you, of course, you add your little twist to it that you're trying to establish, and you'll be amazed at what you come up with. So always keep that in mind. And I look forward to you guys reading Varian Keller's Vampire Killers. And those of you guys who want to get ahead of the story, you can read chapter 2 on my Patreon, because what I'm doing is chapter 2 is still in development, and I am releasing pages on Patreon digitally, a page a week, for you guys to be able to read the story all the way up into the launch in 2027 of the physical book for its Kickstarter campaign. So if you guys want to read chapters 1 and 2, you can definitely go to my Patreon right now and you can start catching up. I'll start uploading pages for Varian Keller's chapter 2 starting next week. Start uploading some of the pages. So stay tuned for that. But if you want to read chapter 1, you can go to my Patreon or you can go to my website, www.venusorioncomics.com, and you can actually get it digital, and you can pick it up physically while supplies are still there, because once they go, that's it for the physical of chapter 1 until the campaign of chapter 2. So definitely, if you're interested, go look into it, and I urge you and I encourage you guys to dig in, find out what it is that motivated you as the person that you are today, what shaped you, and what experiences that you can able to shape and morph into an amazing story that can grow over time to be an IP that people will forever remember and keep and become part of pop culture history. So if this was very informative to you guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that notification. And if you have any other questions that can possibly turn into possible videos in the near future here on this channel, definitely let me know in the comment sections below. And if you want to also get on my Venus Orion Comics newsletters for free wallpapers and updates of what's going on with Venus Orion Comics, you can definitely hit that link as well and subscribe. It's free, costs you nothing. And that wraps this video up. This is Brian Howard Blackson Jr. signing off.